Hey all, your OS reviews. In this video, we're taking a quick look at something rather unusual, but also kind of cool and quirky. It's the SyBran CODE27 Character Livehouse. As the name hints at, you're able to import various characters, and then powered by large language models and AI, be able to converse with it in a more realistic fashion compared to traditional smart speakers and home assistants. For example, compared to a conventional Alexa-powered Echo smart speaker or Google Home Mini, you're able to customize it with your favorite characters from TV shows and animes, making the concept just a little more fun. And even if you aren't subscribed to the otaku subculture, I think in recent years the popularity of anime as a film medium has increased. Just a couple of months ago, for instance, Solo Leveling became one of the trending, most popular animes here in the US, even among audiences that may not be classic anime fans per se, likely heard about the show brought up in conversations because it entered the wider public consciousness, having that breakout moment. Not to mention the character that we have in front of us here is modeled off of SyBran from Beyond Journey's End. It's found critical success with its slice-of-life, touching storytelling that has helped it achieve some of the highest scores I've seen on sites like IMDb. So you get the idea. Whether you're a classic anime fan, or maybe you just want a more lifelike assistant to converse with, something like this just feels a lot more dynamic, and the possibilities here really are endless because you're able to import your own characters. For instance, we can even choose popular Pokemon characters that we like. So it's up to you whether you want to reference an existing character or an IP, or if you want to create a new character from scratch. Now here's the thing, the concept of a 3D-like, almost holographic effect talking companion device we have seen a couple of years ago. I think one of the original models was by Gatebox. The problem though is if you wanted to import one of these devices, the cost was really expensive. So the CODE27 is kind of bringing that concept back, but in a more accessible form. This is slated to be just a fraction of the cost of the Gatebox while delivering a similar experience, if not even better, because back in 2017, when that first product came out, large language models and AI hadn't really taken off yet. But now in 2025, of course, things are dramatically different. And so leveraging functionality here from ChatGPT, DeepSeek, other LLMs is able to reply in a more intelligent way compared to the more robotic voice assistants of the past. So this is pretty good timing on their part because it's taking advantage of these smarter language models becoming available now, making it a more potentially viable product as well. That being said, this is our early hands-on video instead of being our final review because the software is still in pre-production status. And since unboxing this unit, I've already received 2 software updates which have improved on the performance in aspects like latency, adding in even more functionality. But even in the current state, it already feels a little bit more flexible and customizable than the Gatebox, just because it is just leveraging, again, some of those AI models behind the scenes, and you can freely import various characters yourself. Hardware-wise, the device features built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, in addition to 64 gigs of built-in storage, allowing you to store and rotate between different characters, and then using prompting, you're able to customize the characters in terms of their personalities, and feed it more information for it to be aware of what it's supposed to be. For example, whether it should be funny, serious in tone, and how it should act. There's also going to be a camera here on the very top that will allow you to use certain gestures for things like waving to interact with the characters, as well as maybe dance along with it. And also in the final production version, there will be an optional smart rotating base, kind of similar to the Amazon Echo Show, which allows it to rotate on the axes here. So when you're talking to the character, it can also face you or away from you, and also move in a slightly more interesting robotic way. And a closer look at the hardware, there are 2 LED light strips on the sides, which are also reactive with the microphones there up top. There's also a couple of accents located on the side of the frame, as you can tell there, that says El Sai Kongru, which is a quote from another popular anime show from a couple of years back. It's called Steins Gate, which, aside from being very well received as a sci-fi show, I think it's also quite clever because it's a show about time travel. And although this isn't a time travel machine, it is a portal into this virtual 2D world, and you're able to draw on characters across history and have them appear in front of you. So I think it is a fitting, fun reference. And that fun part, I think, is also quite important, because in this day and age, we often complain about our smartphones, for example, of getting a little bit stale in terms of design and not having the novelty, the uniqueness of those tech products that we once saw in the early 2000s and 2010s. And that sense of quirkiness is honestly what made me so interested in tech in the first place. Now, the screen here is also quite interesting because it creates the illusion of depth, almost like that character is floating in front of you. You can see it bouncing off of the mirrors of the floor there. In fact, if we try looking at it from a couple of other angles, you can see it's using this infinity mirror design, acting there as the floor. And because the plastic piece covering up the screen is domed, you get a very interesting kind of trippy effect. It does feel like some parts of the screen are coming out at you a little bit more than other parts, instead of it being completely flat. Quite interesting, and overall colors as well as sharpness I think are all satisfactory. Details seem to be quite clear and legible enough. Now down below here, there's a second screen. It can be programmed to be turned on or off, and even in this off state, it can act as a touchpad, allowing you to interact with the characters on screen as an alternative to using gesture motions, maybe if you're navigating menus and options. That being said, the device here has Bluetooth and a USB port on the back, which means you do also have the ability to plug in a wired or maybe wireless keyboard or mouse. Last but not least, as an alternative to using that touchpad at the very bottom, there's another optional companion app that you can download on your phone for both iOS or Android devices, which allows you to wirelessly control the device from afar. Again, if you want to choose different characters, navigate around the settings, leveraging that Wi-Fi connectivity. And last but not least, the CODE27, of course, has built-in microphones, speakers for talking back, as well as playing music, and has 6 GB of built-in RAM. And with the built-in specs here, it's able to hold a pretty large amount, up to 10,000 dialogues in its working memory. For example, if you're having a conversation about a specific topic like cooking or food, it's going to be able to recall that conversation and retrieve those references as long as it's within the previous 10,000 dialogues that you're making. So it's pretty deep, actually, compared to, I believe, when ChatGPT and Gemini, when it first came out, had certain restrictions. Like you couldn't have more than, I believe, around 8 or 10 dialogues back and forth with it to prevent it from going off the rails, and it was a bit more limited in terms of long-term memory retrieval. But it seems like with this, the restrictions are less stringent. And so with that, let's move into a couple of demonstrations of talking first with Freerin here. Hello, who are you?
I am Freerin, an elven mage with forgotten years behind me. My name has become a whisper in the wind.
How are you feeling today?
A melancholy mist surrounds me, as it often does. Yet, amidst the nostalgia, I sense a gentle warmth. It is a reminder that even in solitude, there is beauty to be found in the world.
Are you the strongest mage?
Strength is not solely measured by power or prowess. I possess abilities that transcend mortal comprehension. Yet, it is not my magic that sets me apart, but the weight of memories, the depth of experience. A mage's true strength lies in the understanding and acceptance of their own place.
What's the weather like today?
I see the same big, fluffy clouds I told you about earlier, but now they're drifting over to cover the sun. The breeze is picking up a bit too. It's looking like we might get some light rain later. Guess it's time for an umbrella.
Who are you, and who's your greatest enemy?
I'm Shadow the Hedgehog, a warrior with no allegiances but my own. My greatest enemy is Dr. Eggman, the mad scientist who thinks he can control me. He can't. Aha! How quaint. A human trying to capture my essence on camera. You think a simple webcam can contain me? I'm Ryuk, the Shinigami of Death Note fame. Boredom is my game, and humans are my entertainment. That purple shirt's quite eye-catching. Don't get too comfortable. My attention span's shorter than your recording time.
My purpose is to be a companion, provide support, and entertain. I'm constantly improving my knowledge of the world and human interaction. I see you're in a bit of a dimly lit setting. Okay, here's one. Why did the camera go to therapy? Because it was feeling a little exposed. Escalade, I am prepared to engage in conversation.
What type of Pokemon are you?
A noble psychic fighting type Pokemon.
Do you know what the time is?
The sun dips towards dusk, casting a warm orange glow on our surroundings. It is almost evening, a fitting hour for reflection and strategic planning. The time is 6:47 p.m.
Alright, what's your natural environment?
A tranquil mountainous region would be my preferred habitat, where the crisp air and serene landscapes allow me to hone my discipline and connection with nature.
Alright, so hopefully that creates a good idea of, again, you're able to converse with this and assign it different personalities. Also shown earlier, you're able to interrupt sentences that the characters are speaking if you want to ask new questions, have more of a free-flowing conversation without even pressing any keys or buttons. Although be careful, because if you're cutting in too much, the character might also get a little angry, just like on a real human. And as we heard in the demo, the latency is actually quite good using the large language models, only taking a split second to respond. Currently, it supports languages like English, Japanese, and Chinese, but more languages are slated to become available in future software updates. And we also saw how the camera can be used to bring in contextual info so that the characters can actually see you, engage with your surroundings if it's dark versus if it's light. If you're wearing a certain colored shirt, for example, it's able to just reply and have a bit more of a natural conversation. That being said, again, this is early production software, kind of a beta version at this point in time, so just keep that in mind. For example, some of the movements as well as the ways that these characters speak, because it's only able to pull information that's publicly available online. So taking FreeRAN as an example from earlier, using the prompting, you can say, this is a TV show that the character comes from, and pulling in some of the general info available from Google. But because the AI model can't really train information outside of what's publicly available, it doesn't necessarily know the contents of all the words or dialogue that FreeRAN has said in all the episodes of the TV show, because those subtitles are probably not a part of the public domain of information that's available. And what that means is if you expect FreeRAN to pull up specific quotes that she said at parts in different episodes of the show as a fan of the show, then those are slight areas where I think the training data is still going to play an important factor, as well as when it comes to movements, they're still a little bit on the general side, such as this waving motion that we also saw some of the previous characters making. We can see it repeated here. So some of that fine-tuning can probably bring it to the next level, but will require a little bit of work, I think, on the user side. Depending on what you're feeding the characters with, it will be able to learn, as well as draw on more information. Any historical trivia about that character or the world that they're a part of, the more specific the better, and also if there's information that's not publicly available from a Google search that you pop in, it's going to be even more valuable for the model to talk in a more in-character way. But still, having this level of customization and flexibility is pretty cool. Now, if we take a closer peek at the UI here, again, keep in mind this is pre-production beta software, but at least gives you an idea of some of the control that you'll have access to. So depending on the size of the characters that you're importing into the CODE27, you're able to change its position as it kind of floats there in space, so that it's going to be closer to the ground, for example, or hovering a little bit closer, further away. The distance or scale of the AI model can also be enlarged, as well as minimized, as well as rotated if you want to look at the character from other angles and degrees. And if we click on the shirt icon, this is where you're able to pull in other virtual characters that you've created or imported onto the CODE27. And also in the heart icon here is where you're able to pull up the prompting. This is where we mentioned you're able to add a bit more contextual info so that the character is better calibrated to respond in a certain way, which doesn't feel too overly out of character. For example, you are this particular psychic Pokemon, and of course, you can cycle through other characters, personalities as profiles to link with their virtual avatars for it to be a more realistic experience, customizing the way that it will respond in the future. And then we have this funky kind of stone-colored icon, which can be used to bring in different voices that you're able to experiment with. For example, this is the current voice profile.
Test! CODE27 here. Ogenki desu ka? Test. Test. CODE27 here. Ogenki desu ka?
And the CODE27 can also be used as a wireless Bluetooth speaker. Of course, drivers here being much larger than what's built into a normal smartphone. So you can just go into Bluetooth settings and then pair with the CODE27. And from this point, you're able to listen to music.
I don't wanna waste what's left.
And turning things down there, overall sound quality is actually not bad either. So if you're trying to use it to just listen to some music, placing it onto a desk as a companion device also seems to do the trick as well. So that is more or less it as far as our hands-on first look at the CODE27 Character Playhouse. And although the term AI might be a little overused in this day and age, I do think this is one of the more interesting applications, taking advantage of a large language model, helping the assistant respond in ways that just feels a little bit more convincing and intelligent compared to generations past. As a rather unique smart assistant slash smart speaker desk gadget, that's pretty interesting to tinker and play around with. You're able to create your own avatars, including designs that you want to import from scratch, compared to a black box you're speaking into. So the idea of something like this is quite playful, and I think the appeal can be much broader than only anime fans if you think of it as a fun, more interactive digital assistant on your desk. So you can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below. It'll definitely be interesting to track and see how things progress with future software updates, if it gains more functionality, becomes more polished in the final production version. But for now, that's been our early hands-on look at the SyBran CODE27, kind of a 3D holographic effect, unique virtual AI companion device in a box.